Happy, what is this, Tuesday? I swear the holiday weeks just kind of throw me off. But check out my live streams I did earlier. You guys actually get three in one day from me, which is very, very rare. But this has been a very unique week. Obviously, the holiday week, it just kind of makes you a little bit more relaxed, kind of winding down for the year. I do like this time of year just because it's the wind down time for a lot of people and things kind of slow down. They're not as hectic. And I'm actually glad. I was talking to one of my coworker. So I'm like, I'm so glad that, Trump won and that, there's not a lot of chaos, for us, just because the outcome of election, it can just be horrible for certain sectors, for sure. It can be chaotic, but it wasn't chaotic for us this year because obviously people got what they wanted. But anyways, I'm not sure if YouTube is suppressing my live streams. I don't know if people get the notifications that I'm going live. I'm sure that one person might be a Fed. We don't know. But I'll let a couple of more people get in here. Obviously, Trump is coming out swinging with his tariffs. He said tariffs is my favorite word. He said we need to rebrand tariffs, right? They get a bad reputation. And Trump, I guess, is going to come in and make sure that he gives that good old word tariff a good reputation. They're not bad, right? And we shall see how they will be employed, right? Obviously, Trump is using the tariffs as a leveraging point for a lot of these nations who have decided to dump their garbage and their human liabilities onto the United States soil in addition to drugs and other things. How can people say that Canada is our friend when we're getting so much garbage from it? I don't really understand that. But, anyways, Trump is coming out swinging with tariffs. He's putting a tariff, what is it? What is he doing? 25% on Mexico for the garbage that they're bringing into the United States, 25% on Canada for the garbage that they're bringing into the United States, and an additional 10% on China. So he's really not playing when he says that he's going to leverage tariffs. Excuse me. And a lot of people argue tariffs is going to make everything higher for people. They're going to increase the cost of things. These countries are just going to trickle those costs back down to Americans. And I guess it's about supply and demand too. How much does Americans really want something? How much can we wait for something? How much can we produce that something that this foreign land is producing on our land? How much can we produce it at home as opposed to even bothering with their products? And that's ultimately the question. It's like, I mean, there's so many different ways in which you can leverage a tariff. I think that people just need to understand that it is a bargaining tool. And he's coming right off the bat, not bullying other nations with tariffs. He's actually giving them ultimatums with these tariffs. You cannot drop your human liabilities onto American soil anymore. And Tom Homan is like, I'm definitely not playing with anybody, down to these Democratic governors who think that they're going to usurp the actions of this administration when it comes to deportations and getting human liabilities that do not need to be here or who have come here illegally in droves off of this land. So, you know, I don't understand what people are being upset about. They're talking about breaking up families. These families made an executive decision to come to this nation, and unfortunately, they heeded the cattle call of the Democratic Party, because when they came in, they made it seem like America was open for asylum to any and everybody. And guess what we got? Droves of any and everybody. So now Trump is like, I'm not playing. We got to mitigate this problem. And it's beyond building a wall. It's beyond beefing up the border security and all that good jazz. We got to go, that extra mile. and we got to tariff these damn countries so that they can help us mitigate the problem that they have created for us as well. We created part of this problem ourselves, unfortunately, because the Democratic Party was in power and they enabled a lot of this BS. Obviously, they were trying to garner a voting base, a new slave class, and welfare recipients. So, you know, people had enough of that. When you talk about welfare programs, these additional human liabilities actually hurt a program like welfare because it kind of takes resources away from Americans. And you can't really deny that it doesn't, because obviously the more people who are in these systems, obviously resources within those systems have to be sort of stretched out and rationed. And why should Americans get lower rations? Because we have invited human liabilities into this nation, in so many different ways. And I think with these business deals, if we're trading with a nation, right, like Mexico, they should have a handle on their people. Their people should not be fleeing to America if they haven't. I don't think we should be doing business with a nation who got people fleeing like this. So they better be glad that Trump is starting with tariffs instead of just saying we're just not going to do anything with you, right? So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens, right? But I was looking at this video. Shout out to Noah TV. And, there's this lady, Jaguar Wright. She's kind of a popular, she's been on the mic, especially with all this Diddy stuff coming out. And, people look at Jaguar as an oracle. I think she's probably seen a lot of things. She's probably experienced a lot of things. And, I think that she's coming out bravely and talking about things. But I oftentimes wonder about some of these people and really, them coming out talking as much as she has. And maybe what really were you involved with that you're not really telling us? Because there's always a darker side to even some of these victims, unfortunately. And we're going to get into one of those victims in a little bit. And again, YouTube might suppress this live stream, so please hit the like button so that we can keep this going in the algorithm and they don't suppress it, because I am going to be talking about someone who is a survivor of these types of, trafficking rings. And I thought her perspective was very interesting because, when we're looking at the Diddy Combs and the, freak offs and all of these things that's coming out about Diddy and even Jeffrey Epstein about the Hollywood proper, there's a lot of perspective that I think that a lot of people, it's not focused on. So a lot of people miss, right? When they talk about children being used as party favors, as that young lady, Allie Carter, had talked about, you wonder, where are they getting these kids? How are they getting these kids? Like, where are they getting these kids from to be party favor? So she gives us some little insight on that too. So we'll talk about that chick a little bit later. But let's talk about Jaguar Wright, because she said that she had to get a Baphomet tattooed on her for protection.
Sure. Off camera, you talked about your tattoo. Yeah. Can you tell the people about your tattoo? I find that very interesting.
My star?
Yes.
It's a cover up.
What's on the cover? What was before?
It covered up the goat's mask that sat at the top of my spine.
What is that?
If a man wears this.
So, we got a commercial. Let's let that run. So she covered up her Baphomet tattoo with a goat or a star.
It was a Baphomet.
The Baphomet. And for the people that don't know what that is, can you explain what that is?
It is a symbol that you are protected by the devil and that you are one of the devil's own. No different than China had.
And what made you get this tattoo?
Protection.
Right.
So she's saying that she got the Baphomet tattoo when she was rolling in these Hollywood music elite circles because she said that it was for protection. And again, she talked about Black China. And again, when she was probably in those little elite circles, prostituting herself likely, she probably had to show that she had fealty to these ritualistic cultures. And that's why she had to get a bathing mat. Doja Cat, she tattoos, it was a removable tattoo, but she had to show fealty in some way by tattooing this Baphomet on her. So we see the type of wickedness that is really fostered in the music industry and some of these other industries. These people, in their own little creative ways, they are showing you the high level of Satanism that is just infiltrated a lot of these institutions and different little Hollywood orders. Is disgusting.
Wanted them to leave me alone.
And by having this
She
tattoo,
said that she
you
wanted
were
them to
protected
leave her
at
alone.
the
Who
time.
is them? Right? She doesn't, I guess
Protected
it's,
by the devil, and that you are one of the devil's own. No different than Black China had.
And what made you get this tattoo?
Protection.
Right.
I just wanted them to leave me alone.
And by having this tattoo, you were protected at the time.
Left alone.
Left alone.
They want you to wear their symbols. People don't understand that all of these things have a much greater meaning. They want you to feel loyalty. They want you to show the rest of the world that you believe in what they believe in. They tag us. Those who refuse to be tagged get persecuted. Those who choose to go along with it and pretend like it doesn't exist.
Can I ask you, what was your moment?
So, she's saying a lot of interesting things here, but I would tell you some of the reoccurring things that I see that really, at least help me to draw to conclusion that an artist has engaged in a ritual or they're being publicly shamed to some degree is the platinum blonde hair. You're going to see a lot of celebrities at weird times of the year. They all seem to go for this platinum blonde hair. And it's not a fad or a trend, it's actually a symbol of rebirth. We've seen Megan Thee Stallion push out the platinum blonde hair after Tory Lanez. A lot of these people are engaging in rituals to maintain their fame. And, there's a couple of things that to me help you to see that they've done a ritual. Like I said, the platinum blonde hair. A lot of times in these music videos, you see a reoccurring thing of a new artist who is personifying a death of themselves as another image of themselves who seems to be from the light are watching them. And then, like she said, the checkerboard, right? A lot of these Masonic symbolisms, they are now showing up very, very hard in your modern music video. And it's just undeniable the undertones that I feel like a lot of these artists are pushed to promote to the public in very subtle ways in the name of art. And so it's interesting.
A moment of clarity to even want to cover it up? Like, what was that moment of clarity for you to say?
My son's dead body. There is no protection.
Are there any other tattoos that we normally look at and be like, oh, that's cool?
So she said that when her son passed on, that is when she felt like she needed to get this Baphomet tattoo covered up, because I'm pretty sure she, this is my thing about Jaguar Wright that I don't really, she's perplexing to me, and I'll tell you why. I don't know how to take a person like this, because I feel like when you have been exposed to certain elite orders, it's not like a matter of you just coming out, living a normal life and just spilling your beans. A lot of these people engage in blood sacrifice, blood commitments, and rituals, right? So for her to be coming out singing like a canary about some of this stuff that's supposed to be highly secretive, it does lead me to question whether or not some of these things are her experiences. And even if they are her experiences, how did Jaguar Wright get out of it? Like, was it a matter of her going crazy, being shamed, going broke? Right? But to me, you still know too many secrets if you're getting tattooed and owned. So this is my only red flag with her. She seems like a control opposition to some narratives. Some of the stuff that Jaguar Wright has come out about and said, like I said, if you are over 40, you've heard the rumor mill on those things before, but because Diddy was so protected for all these decades, right? We weren't going to see his fall from grace until he got beside himself, too big for himself, and they needed to take him down. So, I just feel like this woman isn't an oracle, but I would be interested because she's saying a lot of things, and a lot of things that Jaguar is saying really coincides with this woman, and this is what I've really been wanting to get to. And this may be a sensitive topic for some people. I see we got 171 people in here. I don't know how many of you are feds, and I don't know how many of you are real people watching. But hit the like button. Like, why are y'all just spectating? Go ahead and hit that like button. So, but the real topic that I wanted to get into was what this lady is talking about, where she said she was sold into an elite pedophile network. Okay. And when I was listening to this lady's story, it really just made me think about some of this stuff, that the rumors and stuff that we're hearing about children and these Epstein and these Diddy parties, right? To me, she shed a lot of light on just her journey through this sex trafficking ring. And it's really sad. So I'm just going to say right off the bat that if you have been a victim of such networks, if you get triggered talking about such things, this may not be the live stream for you. I want to be considerate of your emotions and your trigger points. And we are praying that you get to a reconciliation point in your life. And I know suffering from traumas like this woman is describing, I know that can be difficult, but we are going to pray that God gives you the strength to heal from whatever trauma. And I always like to say that life is like poker, all right? Life is like the game of poker. You don't get to choose the cards that you're dealt. If you got to choose the cards that you played in poker, poker wouldn't be fun. There wouldn't be any mystery to it. And unfortunately, there are some people in life, they're dealt a decent hand. Some people are dealt a winning hand. Some people are dealt a decent hand that they can play, right? And then some people are just dealt crappy hands, right? Just crappy hands. We don't get a chance to pick our families. We don't get a chance to pick how screwed up we're going to be born into a cycle of whatever, right? So, this woman is sharing her experience, with her mother. And there's a lot of people whose mothers are the root causes of their trauma. And, I would say that, my biological mom, she was a root of some of the trauma that I dealt with early on in my life, but through the grace of God, the power of God and his word, and also therapy early on, as a kid, I was able to reconcile, move on, and be able to be a normal person in society that didn't crutch onto traumas. I don't believe in weaponizing trauma. I am definitely a champion of living a better, sounder life through reconciliation. Reconciliation is a key word for people who are dealing with trauma. I don't know what's going on with my chat. I don't even know if you guys are chatting. Let me see something, because nothing's happening on my phone right now. You know how YouTube, they want to be special about stuff. But I'll get into the chat. Let's just introduce this brave woman. That's all I can say. She's a very brave woman. All right.
My name is Annika Lucas, and I primarily identify myself as a survivor of child sex trafficking. I grew up in Belgium, and my family was quite normal from the outside. Father, mother, and 2 children, boy and girl. This was my stepfather. My mother actually had me when she was single. My stepfather was the mayor of the village. And so we were not poor. Growing up for me is in the first years, I had a caretaker when my mother was single, and I was being brought to caretaker every day. I loved her, she loved me, and I was actually very outgoing as a toddler. This caregiver, being in Brussels, which is a bilingual town, was French speaking, so I actually started speaking French, not Flemish. Even though I was being abused by my mother at the time, I was also very outgoing, very bossy, little girl.
So she's already talking about that her mom was abusing her, and this is sad. Like, I mean, I would love to know what the mom's background was that she was abusing, the little girl. But so before she even got into the network of evil people, she was already dealing with trauma, just by her mom alone. Okay.
And then when my mother married, when I was 4 years old, I shut down very much. I lost the woman who loved me, who was like a real mother to me. And we moved to Flanders. I learned Flemish, but this was the beginning, the onset really of where I was starting to get groomed to be taken into the trafficking network. So I believe that my mother was targeted by the network. Well, we got a cleaning lady. And that cleaning lady, my mother now had a son by my stepfather, my brother. The cleaning lady started to offer to take me with her to watch me. And so for 1 year, the cleaning lady and her husband took me to outings.
So it starts with an over trusting relationship established, right? In this instance, it was the cleaning lady, and this other lady, Lisa. Her situation was she just had a mother who was way too trusting of the men that she exposed her to, and she didn't the mother really just didn't protect her from her boyfriend. So you have so many different scenarios here, different women, and I'll go into Lisa's story a little bit too. Different women, right, whose root cause of their trauma is the mother, right? And it is the mother who gets them into these sex trafficking situations. And it starts with them being too trusting, right? In this woman's situation, it was a housekeeper. It was a housekeeper that, who was helping her with the child, right? And she became trusting of this person. In the lady Lisa's case, it was the mom's boyfriend who was just doing everything for her, making her happy, right? So he felt like, so that kind of got her into her first points of trauma. Ladies, and I've done this, videos on this before called single mother types, the types that cause trauma to their children. And, one of the single mother types, I call her Needy Nina. Needy Nina Needy Nina is one of these women who cannot be alone. It is hard for her to be alone, and she will take up with any old kind of guy that would just give her company and some level of attention rather than being alone. And unfortunately, a lot of these guys end up being evil file, wicked people. So it's really sad what some of these children go through very, very young. And she's talking about how her mom married into a situation where she really started getting groomed.
So these outings, there's lots of children always. They were from Holland. In fact, we went swimming every week. They taught me how to swim.
So one of the things that the housekeeper did to kind of take in the little girl is that they were going on family outings in which there was going to be a lot of kids there. So obviously as a parent, you're like, I don't got a lot of kids around me. Yeah, go ahead. She'll have some fun playing with other kids. And this is how it starts with this lady and her husband.
I never liked them. The children seemed to change all the time. They kept saying that there were cousins and nephews and nieces from Holland. And there were definitely Dutch children there, but also Belgian children. And I was rather confused. I was never really allowed to connect with any of these children, but there were many. They did this for about a year before they took me then to the first event in the network. Once I was being taken to the network,
So mind you, this is a couple that her mother has trusted, coming from a housekeeper, right? That mom has trusted to watch the little girl. So a year passes, and now, now she's getting introduced by this couple to her first, quote, network.
My mother actually took over from the pimps. I don't really know what happened exactly, but I tried to tell my mother what had happened to me and the words that I had available to me at that time. And instead of protecting me and protecting me, she actually started to drive me herself. I was then trafficked into a pedophile network that actually at the time consisted of the VIPs of the country. The boss of the network was the Minister of National Defense at the time. The people involved, I found out later more than anything, but were all quite powerful, had important posts, and it was a mix of politicians, of high-placed officials, in fact, government officials, clergy.
So this stuff goes beyond Diddy, y'all. A lot of these types of officials, they are the very arms that have enabled people like Diddy and Epstein for so long. You know what I mean? And that's why I say I don't like think that Diddy is a innocent person. I think he deserves his fall from grace. But at the same time, the same evil people who have enabled that man are the ones who are taking him down. So there's no virtue in what's going down with Diddy at all.
Clergy, as well as aristocrats. And that was the Belgian network. However, this Belgian network connected to what is an international network. Well, it's very dark what happens inside the network. It's a mafia that uses kids to blackmail people primarily. People get lured in, but of course it takes a specific kind of person who is
So now we're going into the Epstein stuff, right? Blackmail, right? Again, they are using these children for blackmail. They're trying to get collateral on each other or other powerful people. And again, nothing, the worst collateral you could possibly have on a grown ass powerful man is not that he cheated on his wife, not that he fondled some broad in the office, but that he harmed a child in a sexual manner reserved for adults. That is a very, very shameful thing. That is what the public would typically demonize an individual and shame them to their hopefully timely deletion. But these people don't want that shame, right? But this lady is telling you that these people have faces, they have positions of power. Some of the people that you are thinking are, high esteemed people, some of them might be pedophiles. They might be part of these little networks who are harming children and leveraging children in very evil ways.
Go that way, who's not going to stop themselves before they end up in bed with a child. Everybody was in each other's pocket and nobody was free anymore. So first, this husband of the cleaning lady to me, and I was just around my 6th birthday.
So the husband of the cleaning lady violated this lady first, right before her 6th birthday. Okay, again, it tells you just the sickness of some of these perverted people who are probably part of cycles of this perversion themselves, but yet they're superimposing this stuff on innocent other people so that they can damage other people's life. This is how the devil works. Misery loves company, and power hungry people, they tend to be miserable people that are just cloaked with wealth and power, and that is what they run on. And it's just evil.
So I was brutally. Then they took me to what was an orgy in a castle.
A 6-year-old girl, not even 6 years old.
It was extremely confusing because it was a masked ball or something. It was masked.
Masked
so
ball.
People were all dressed like hippies. That was the first time. And it was extreme. And it was made clear from the start that if I were to speak out, then not only I would be killed, but anybody, I would definitely be killed.
This is what grown people are telling to a not even 6-year-old kid that they are violating at her mother's permission.
If I spoke out, and that was made clear. Not long
and mind you, she says that it starts off with this lady and her husband taking this girl away, gaining the trust of the mother, And before long, she says that her mother is the one that started driving her to this event. This is just the sickness of this world today.
After that, my mother got a driver's license. She couldn't drive. She just got a driver's license without taking lessons. She got a car
So
without
now
having
these
taken
people
lessons. So
start
she got
hooking
the
her mom
only
up.
available automatic car at that time, which was a Dutch car. Um, so she was very excited. She actually took me to the registrar office.
Think about how selfish this mom is, right? You're very excited because you're getting hooked up with all these material things, but at the expense of the innocence and dignity of your child. Imagine the manipulation the mom was like convincing this little girl of as she was just being brutalized like that. Let me take you to the. I'm so happy. She's like, my mom is so happy. All the while, your daughter is sitting up there traumatized. It's at the expense of your child's trauma, and somewhere in her brain, it doesn't click. Like, what do you call a mental condition? Like, I understand Munchausen syndrome. Is that a form of Munchausen syndrome? I don't know. But it's very perplexing to me how a mother who is supposed to be a nurturer and a protector would do this to their child.
The sort of Belgian DMV, which was at the town hall, to get her driver's license because she was really proud. And then she started to drive me to the network herself. My mother had a contact who was a woman from a noble family, and I've seen them talk to this countess, which made no sense at all. This countess would have never addressed those people, or would have really not ever addressed my mother either. But my mother sort of bragged about her relationship with this countess. I was 6 when it started, and for the first 3 years, I was used as what was called an expendable child. Because my mother and father were themselves not part of this network, as other parents were, they could do anything with me. In the Belgian network, there was a group, particularly aristocrats, who killed children. So a few times I was in situations like that I just happened to not be killed. So in this network, you have to understand it's a murderous network.
So this is sad, right? Because if your parents are not associated with this network, right, then these people can do whatever they want to you, right? She said that, she was one of the expendable children because her parents were not associated with this network. So she's talking about these violent aristocrats who actually probably Moloch worshipers, Baal worshipers, ritualistic type folks who had, I guess, their thing was actually murdering the children. And this is what she said that she saw from these people.
Expendable children, that means that they can be killed. That's to say, it was clear that their lives wasn't valued, so those children could be used for anything. That could mean they could be used for torture and killing.
So I mean, it's one thing to say child trafficking, right? But it's another thing to really understand what that truly means, what some of these children are going through, in these cycles of being relocated and repurposed from this person to another, right? And it's a horrible reality for a lot of people to face, but imagine being one of those children, dealing with the betrayal of not only these adult people, but your parents being so low value and pathetic and desperate that they would sacrifice your poor life to those demons. Because that's what's really happening to many of these kids. These kids aren't getting kidnapped. Some of these kids are not being kidnapped. Some of these kids are being groomed. They're being isolated and they're being picked. These people are getting close to their families so that they can build trust, and they are sacrificing these children. It is very, very sad.
It's very hard to talk about what happened to me during those first 3 years because it was very extreme.
First 3 years,
So I was
she said it's very difficult for her to talk about because she was 6 years old when it started, really. So from 6 to 9, she was brutalized, basically. And her mom dropped her off, even during school hours, so that she could be brutalized by these satanic people.
was in quite a few
I don't see my
extreme
chat
situations.
moving,
I
you
was
guys. So hang on for 1 second.
sometimes
Let me take a pause here because I'm not sure if the chat is going or not. YouTube, obviously, when it comes to topics like this, these folks don't really like to give the topic any love. They suppress the live streams. They do all kinds of crazy stuff. So let me just go here so I can read the comments if there are comments coming through this computer. Oh my God, you guys are commenting. I am so sorry, guys. I do not see not one comment coming through the chat here. So I'm not sure why that is, but I appreciate you guys. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, guys. What's up, Philip? We see you. Philip in the house. Let's see. Nature versus nurture. I see you, little terabyte. Man, I did not know you guys were doing this. I apologize. Forgiveness is key. Absolutely. Let's see. I'm just gonna breeze through. Some people go through a lot of trauma, but become stars, right? They become stars, and this lady is gonna tell you why some of them become stars. Because some of them are being made to be stars as a reward for the trauma that they've gone through. It's really sick. This lady breaks down so much. It is very, 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 very sad. What is this guy? Luke, you said wig? That's irrelevant, so we just gonna block your ass because you want to be stupid. And you probably one of them folks enabling stuff like this. You always get the trolls when you talking about their folks. Satan don't like for you to be talking about his folks, his kids on earth. Some of these demonic people who deserve to be set on fire and burned alive because of their wickedness. You said you don't know why we're still not talking about Epstein Island because Epstein Island protects too many of these aristocrats, politicians, military folks, and all these other deviants who feel so empowered by their position that they like to violate children because of it. These people are sick. They just deserve. They really deserve death. Um, let's see. All right. Okay, so we're gonna go back to her story. I see you, son, dad. You said, can we play the audio, please? Look, we gonna get to it. I know this is deep, it's hard. So let's get back to it, but I needed to check in with my chat. You can't dictate what we do over here. That's not what we're doing over here. But here we go. We're gonna go back to our girl. And shout out to women like this, survivors like this, who are bold enough to speak up and tell us the reality of what these children who go through these types of networks, experience. Because it's one thing to say, child trafficking, right? But what does that really mean? What is happening to these kids? How are these kids being picked, trafficked? Are these just kids who are being kidnapped from other people? What are the circumstances of how these kids are getting into this trafficking ring? And this woman is telling us that these are parents who are putting their kids voluntarily in these demonic and deviant sex rings. So let's keep going, brave woman.
taken to bars and given to the men there. But other
9 years
times I was
old, taken to
taken
bars.
to castles, and then waiting with a handler until until the first group of people had left, and then at the late hour, the younger children were brought in. Sometimes I was taken to somebody's house for the day. My mother would keep me out of school and then just drive me to somebody's house. And then whatever was necessary, I have remembered things about being in extreme situations with, where other children did die. So my mother was being paid for this. What would happen then with an expendable child is the parents get paid. Of course, there's no contract, nothing is in writing. It's all very vague. My mother's denial itself took care of a lot, but there was money exchanged, and her contact person was this countess. But let's say if I would have been killed and other children were, then a doctor who was part of the network would have been able to write a certificate, a death certificate, and bring up. So in 1972, I was traded by the boss of the network to an international player, somebody who was in the international network that.
So when they say we talk about slavery, y'all, slavery is not over. It never ended. It took on different creative other little faces to it, but servitude, slavery has never ended, right? It may not be legal slavery, may have ended, to different policy levels around the world, but illegal slavery is alive and well, and it always has been. I mean,
the boss of the network wanted to do business with, wanted to be in
trading
their
people,
good favor,
trading
because this was
children,
someone who had global power.
And her mama left them.
And this person apparently had this countess ask my mother who my father was, and also they drew blood. Anyway, they found out that I'm from one of the bloodlines, which is something that in this global network is very important. So a perpetrator then decided that he was going to get me trained, that's to say, mind control trained, which is torture based, and to make me an elite slave, and to even give me a platform on the world stage so I could be an elite slave to the most powerful men in the world.
So they were training this little girl at 9 years old to be an elite slave to the world's most powerful people. And she mentioned that the training was obviously torturous and brutal, right? But obviously they needed to condition her mind, right? She said they used mind control techniques on this poor baby, obviously to manipulate the lifestyle into being normal. I suppose, and also to put the fear in her of not talking about this lifestyle either, I suppose.
So elite slaves are trained, most of them are trained from a very young age, and they can be people who are actually famous, but are actually being used as slaves, because it's all about the same kind of mafiosi style. I was being trained to spy, and also I was literally trained to make men fall in love with me at age 9. It was about a month long initially, but it was really a year long. The whole training was a year long, and meanwhile I was already being used.
So let's stop here. This is where your Diddy's and Epstein's come in, right? Because they're leveraging children like her, right, to get the collateral on these people. Mind you, she's not just being trained to be a worker, right? She's being trained to be an operative from a very young age. She's telling us that she was not just trained to be this elite, slave. She was, and I have to be careful because YouTube get all weird when you start talking using normal words because it irritates the demons of some of those folks. But she was being trained to be an op. So when you're talking about high elite bankers, judges, politicians, they go to a party, right? Some little girl is coming dressed up fancy and acting like a grown woman or whatever, seducing these men, right? She's saying that these little girls have been trained since they were very little to do those things.
Use as slaves, because it's all about the same kind of mafiosi style. I was being trained to spy, and also I was literally trained to make men fall in love with me at age 9. It was about a month long initially, but it was really a year long. The whole training was a year long, and meanwhile I was already being used. I was taken to Germany on weekends and spent it with someone who I realized later was a very big politician in Germany at the time. I mean, I was not only did he really like me, but I was also spying on him, and I was reporting about his weakness then to who had become my owner, which was this international network. Basically,
Wow.
when I was going to Germany on the weekends with this, being driven there by handlers of the Belgian network and then dropped off in places, picked up by the on the side of the road, actually on a quiet road, by this politician, and then I would just simply drive with him. And so, because I had been trained, I knew how to not be, not call attention to myself. He would check in, and this was very similar each time. It was always very idyllic, beautiful places on the beautiful rivers in Germany, in some small hotel pension, and there's maybe 3 or 4 rooms, and so he would have the whole hotel to himself, but we would sleep in the same bed. And then, of course, it would be all it was all about pleasing him, and for him, I know that there was a great joy, or maybe pleasure is the right word, in having these people, just fawn all over him and be so grateful and lucky that this very important person is visiting them and is gracing them with his presence. And they would say that, if anything, he would say that I'm his niece. But of course, my German, I mean, he actually taught me to speak German, this politician. I mean, better. I didn't really speak it very well. So when we were alone, there was a lot of buts. So it had a lot to do about. He was also just very happy. He seemed just very happy to be around a little girl that was there for him in this way that I was, just listening. I thought, I thought he was great, and he was a really good man, and that was my training, of course, as a slave, is to flatter him to the max.
Oh my God. These people are freaking sick. These people are sick. These people are sick. And imagine a child, being brought up in a situation like that. At some point, it becomes normalized to them, right? And, you can even tell the way that she's, speaking. She's like, I was trained, to please him, to make him feel good. And, she was, that she actually was able to do that, right? She was actually happy to have this little girl around doing these things to this guy. I mean, it's just these people are sick. But this is what child trafficking really looks like.
So that
And we
he
don't
would
talk
feel
about it enough.
really
We
good.
just say child trafficking and just let it go. There are real victims, right? Beyond your Diddy's, beyond your Epstein's, there are victims in just high class networks of people, right? And I bet you, if you look at some of these oligarchs, you look at some of these high profile men, the reoccurring theme that you would see is that they're probably unattractive and disgusting and repulsive. And the only thing they can do is to have a manipulated little girl make them feel like they're not. See, I talk about the 5 social values for a reason. Because there are a lot of people, they weren't born beautiful. They weren't born with the brains. They weren't born knowing how to create stuff. They don't play a sport. They don't have dynamic characters. All they have is legacy wealth. All they have is the winning hand that they were dealt. But that winning hand didn't make them a quality of person. It didn't do that, right? It made them evil. And a lot of times these people are coming from legacies of evil minded people. And a lot of these people are creating and recreating cycles of trauma, you know, with people like her.
Good about himself, and that's how he got to feel good about himself.
That's how he
And
got
so,
to feel good about himself.
really good man, and that was my training, of course, as a slave, is to flatter him to the max, so that he would feel really good about himself, and that's how he got to feel good about himself. And so he clearly enjoyed the physical closeness a lot, and the warmth,
Demons.
and
These
what
people are demons.
what then appeared to be love for him, I think. So this one
What's
year
going
was
on,
very
Joshua? What's
peculiar,
up,
that I
Sammy?
was
I
actually
see
being
you.
groomed.
What's going on, Matt?
Then on a big scale. And my owner, if I can say that, obviously this person who wanted to own me as a slave had plans for me, and
They are breeders.
this was discussed even with other people in the network. So it was decided I was going to be a star in France. Everyone was treating me like a star. Yeah, that's really all I can say. And I had somebody who was giving me facial massages, other massages, but nothing creepy about these massages. There was a photographer. Nothing creepy about the photographs. Even.
So now she's saying that this network of people are, at this point in her life, they're propping her to be on the world stage as a star. And I've said this before. Where are some of these celebrities coming from? They just come out of nowhere. People prop them as sex symbols and all kinds of things. And it's just like, you're not even that great, but, yeah. But she's saying that these people groom these people not just into being operatives, but also into being celebrities.
Even though I was naked, everybody was just making me into what I was to become, which was a French singer. There was a singing coach there, actually, and I was.
They're manufacturing
again,
some of
there was
these
nothing
artists
I could do wrong.
through these little
Everything
networks.
was positive. So there was no correction. It wasn't really correction. Everything was. It's like kind of how we are taught now to treat our kids, to just focus on the positive. But I never experienced that before. And suddenly, there's this voice coach, and he brings out the best out of my voice, the purity of the voice, and teaching me to sing for certain songs, again through repetition, certain French songs, Edith Piaf, Jacques Brel. And I was singing these songs, and it was easy. The French came back very easily. Eventually, I was going to be inducted into the cult. And so being inducted into the cult eventually was sort of my graduation, I guess, or it was to be the beginning of my new life, let's say. And there's been a lot of talk during that year about what my life was going to be, how comfortable, the most beautiful apartments in Paris, the best house on the Côte d'Azur, the yacht, the respect, the platform. Everybody
So they
would
basically
think I was
sold
the
her the
best
Hollywood
singer,
dream.
actress in the world, and I would get all the magazine out. It was all prepared, and it was just that what I had to do to belong eventually was just too much. I rebelled and was kicked out. Basically, I was reprogrammed, and I was extremely humiliated and punished. And this was reprogramming to make sure I would never become successful. After I was put back in the Belgian network, Belgians never really discovering what had actually happened to me, used me for their VIPs then. But a young gangster came into the network, and he had power in the Belgian network because he wasn't afraid to use a gun. But eventually, a year later, he ended up rescuing me. So now it's back to my mother driving me to the network. And once this gangster showed up, things changed a little bit, because he would keep me longer and so forth than usual. And so also groomed me for 6 months, in fact, and started by protecting me, and then ended up abusing me worse than anybody else. Such violence, and then, that would have resulted in my being murdered. And then he had a change of heart. And then he made a deal with the boss of the network to get me out. The physical circumstances of this gangster's name is Patrick Hammers, and the politician who was in charge of the network is Paul van den Boeynants, who had a long career in politics in Belgium. And the gangster had also quite a fascinating career in crime. And the deal in 1974 that was made when this gangster was 22 years old, I think, or 23, was that he was going to work for the politician to get me out. He was going to become his whatever left-hand man. And what he did at age 11 is he gave me instructions for life, and they were extremely detailed. He told me never to become a to never sleep with anyone for anything, never do it. To that I should not become a drug addict, that I should never buy, that I could take drugs if they were given to me, but I could never do anything to get them. He told me I should not become an alcoholic. I could have a little wine here and there, but I should never drink too much. No hard liquor, once a week for hard liquor, or some crazy rule like that. He told me that I should leave the country, that I should leave Belgium, that I have to go to Paris, London, New York. I have to settle in New York, and I should marry someone who is not an older man who made his own fortune, but someone my age who is from a wealthy family, preferably a family of New York bankers. This all came out of his mouth as he was basically driving me home the last time. And of course, it included to never speak about the network, never say anything to anyone, just never do it. And these life instructions, they settled very deeply inside myself, because he had done this one good act in his life. You know, he had done this thing that was selfless for me. And it was in very dramatic circumstances, and these directions became sort of my guidelines for life, that really got me through, that really helped me. He also gave me some to deal with my mother in the coming weeks, in the weeks that would follow, because he knew she would be angry that she couldn't take me to the network anymore.
So her mom,
and he told me to try to leave that house as soon as I could. So once I was rescued
not
from
only
the network,
was he freeing her from this network, he was, basically trying to liberate her from her mom, who had got her into this network. This is sad. This is sad because, again, this woman's mom introduced her to this trauma for her own personal gain. So when we're talking about, child trafficking, right? We got to look at these kids beyond some child that was kidnapped randomly. These kids are being sacrificed into these networks of people by their parents a lot of time. And that is the saddest reality to the trafficking thing of all. She's talking about all of these kids that were at these little random parties that these people that her mom trusted her with, and she wasn't allowed to interact with those kids, talk to those kids. And every time those kids' faces changed, every time they said that they had some cousins or somebody in town, these kids were from all different types of backgrounds, right? And again, this poor woman, she is a victim of her mom. She's a victim of her mom not protecting her. We're going to pray for, we got to keep our prayers up for people, because we just never know what people are going through.
Network, I really was never trafficked again. I followed those guidelines that had been given to me very, very closely. So at age 16, I actually ended up in the red light district in Antwerp. And because of this direction, I never slept with anyone. I was able to reach high functioning levels again, and not just function well in society, but have more empathy and love for people, and really heal as a human being and as a soul. And I think it's important to look and uncover this darkness, however hard that is for each person, before we can actually create that change. And I think ultimately we are the ones that need to change.
Wow, that was a very powerful account that I've been meaning to share this for days, right? Because I think this woman's bravery it's definitely something to praise her for. But I just really appreciate this woman, sharing her story. And, when I came into this woman's account about being, sold into the elite
All right, Lisa.
traffic ring, I also ran into
Lisa.
Lisa here. Now, poor Lisa, same scenario. Her mom, eager as a beaver, desperate as hell, trusting everybody, especially some of these weirdo men with their daughters. It's like I don't understand how women will sit there and leave these men that they barely know with their young children. I mean, it just seems like they're begging for something to happen. Even if these people have their
Intense
own
that it
kids,
just
let me tell you, some people will fix themselves to do stuff to your kids that they may not even imagine doing to their own kids, or even they do that stuff to their own kids and they don't care about if they do it to your kids too. That's why I don't do sleepovers. I don't allow my kids to sleep over anybody's house. I mean, and I take that back. Like one of my good close friends, like our daughters are really close. We trust each other, right? I know she ain't got no creepy people at her house like that. We have the same wavelength with that. But for the most part, if it's not family or close friends, my kids are not allowed to go to no sleepover. So no friends with, parents from school or whatever. No. My son asks me all the time, can I go sleep over my friend's house? He's always asking me. I'm like, no. Because I don't know his parents like that. Just because I see you at the bus stop don't mean I know you. And that's just word 100. And people need to start thinking about protecting their children like that, especially single moms, right? Because these are scenarios in which single moms were the ones who were the root cause of their kids' trauma.
Up, us girls, kind of racing each other, right? Everything's a game. And we walk in the studio, and I see this guy sitting there, and kind of a very long, almost like a table desk, but a very long desk. And in the middle of it is a Rubik's Cube. And so I'm like, a Rubik's Cube, can I play with it? And we met, our eyes met. And it was just, his look was so cold and mean and, I don't know, intense, that it just kind of shocked me. I looked away and I just sat down. And I didn't say anything else. Just, one by one, we all got our headshots, clothes on, that's it. And then we're out of there. Yeah. Goodbye. And
So this
the next
mom,
day, it's
her
just me and Dawn
mom,
and Joe.
so her mom, she, in her situation, her mom started she met some guy who enjoyed going to nudist camps. And her mom made her and her brother go to this nudist camp, even though they were uncomfortable doing that. Now, from this nudist camp, or her siblings, right? From this nudist camp, right? Mom and the boyfriend breaks up, but then her sisters ends up meeting other people who went to nudist camp, her older sister, and so that got her back into these nudist camp. And this second couple are the ones who, at age 11, started grooming her around this nudist camp and sexualizing her. And these people, like, I guess at some point, the boys in the neighborhood found out about whatever was going on, and then they began to sexualize this young girl too. And so it's just so sad what I find that, young people go through because their parents aren't protecting them. And, I'm very grateful to, my mom for being overprotective and for not being super duper trusting with any and everybody. And I definitely encourage parents to be like that with their kids these days because, again, people are sick. People are riddled with Satanism. And again, you see what some of these people are willing to do, to children, because they have the power to do it. This it's really sad. So, um, He said some people will demean you to feel more powerful. They really will. And think about what that woman said. This guy felt valued when he had a young girl geeking all over him because obviously he wasn't that attractive or appealing to people in his own age group, and they would never look at him like that. This little girl was forced and trained to treat this man like that, right? But it just tells you that some of these people who are high class and are rich and elitist, these people are losers in their core and in their soul, because anytime you can, the only way you can feel validated is if a young child that you are sexualizing is praising you. You're a sick person, you're sick deviant. And honestly, again, I wish I had a dragon. I'd be like, Dracarys, just set them on fire. There's no room in a civil society for these types of people. And this is why they keep their ugly asses on the underground. This is why we don't get to see who they are and what their names are, because they know that they are shameful, ridiculous, pathetic people, but yet they want people to believe that they have some level of reverence and high esteem. So I always tell people, don't be lording over too many types of people these days, because some of these people got the devil in them. They got the devil in them. And sometimes you could be sitting up there like, oh, yeah, he seems like a great guy. And he could be a straight up evil, foul person. And even down to these women, too. Some of these women are something else, too, because they're running on the same wavelength of, if you look at these bras, they ugly and funny looking as hell, but they got the power to harm somebody else and make them feel like they really feel about themselves inside. They have the power to make somebody else more vulnerable than them feel shame. And this is how these satanic minded people, this is how they rock, right? So it's just really, really sad. What's up, Ghetto Planet? I see you. I agree, little terabyte. It's sickening. These people are sick. They're bringing their children into this stuff. What's up, Blind Cricket? I see you. What's going on, Joshua? I see you too. These people are bringing their children into these rings. So a lot of times when people are thinking about child trafficking, they are literally thinking about children who have been kidnapped. They're not thinking about the kids who have been sold into these rings, like R. Kelly. Let's just keep it real. R. Kelly, what he was accused of, the evil stuff that he did, that's horrible. But let's talk about them parents that was dropping their kids off to R. Kelly. Let's talk about them parents who knew what it was about R. Kelly, because a lot of times in those closed circles, the rumor mill isn't really that long, right? If you're rolling in those circles, you'll hear more than one person saying, "Yeah, that man, he like little girls," right? These people know what it is, just like these people that was rolling with Diddy's. When Diddy talked about after the party, it's the after party. This young lady just talked about, yeah, it was the party, and then when all the regular people went, there was the after party, and this is when they brought the children out, or as Allie Carter would call them, the party favors, for these sick, demonic people to pleasure themselves with, whether in ritual or just because or getting collateral, or just because they're a sick person. So you guys pray. Just wait until you can't afford to think. Lord, take your politics obsessed ass on somewhere. Ain't nobody talking about affording. And what are you talking about? Oh, she's talking about the tariffs. My bad, Ghetto. I'm like sitting up there like she done went back to the very, very beginning of the topic here. Hey, you can think what you want to think about tariffs. As far as I'm concerned, the Biden inflation has already increased prices for many people. So I guess we need to just take our chances on tariffs at this point, because Biden's inflation didn't raise money for the average household. So we've been taxed and tariffed in different little creative ways anyways. And that's why Kamala Harris wanted to come in talking about we got price control. What is that price control? How are you going to get price control, Kamala? You was going to do the same damn thing that Trump is doing, which is tariffs. And you can definitely negotiate price control with tariffs as well. Because then it comes down to, okay, well, if you don't want to pay the tariffs or you want to just be ridiculous on your prices, then don't sell your product here in the United States. So you just, you say you just as crazy as you look. Well, get your ass off of my live stream and then you won't have to look at my crazy ass, weirdo. You're probably one of those pedophiles and we've hit a nerve, right? Or you're probably one of those weirdo Zionists who have ruined the country with your economic policies, hooking up all your buddies, letting them sell goods on American land tax free, and they don't even got to produce on this land, just hooking people up. Y'all pay for friendships. That's what the Democrats do. Y'all pay for friendships. Y'all don't know how to hold people accountable. Y'all don't know how to leverage or negotiate. Y'all just pay for friendships. So shut the hell up. Kamala was going to get that price control with them tariffs. She really was. All right. Let's see. All right. Why don't any of you ever mention the many pictures of Trump with Maxwell and Epstein? Pictures of Trump with Epstein's girls around them with the sick smirk on his face. What is going on? I've touched on Trump being associated with Epstein. Trump has touched on himself being associated with Epstein. And again, you have to understand the Jeffrey Epstein dilemma a little bit. Again, you're talking about an agent who his responsibility was to play like a Paris Hilton, throw these ritzy parties, have these, basically like Diddy, throw these parties, invite anybody who's anybody, invite anybody who's rising in a rank of some institution, make sure they get there, make sure you get them inebriated, right? Make sure you have the cameras around, right? Because we may need to get collateral on that guy. So if he says, no, I'm not going to vote for this particular policy, we'll just break out the video surveillance of this guy with this young girl who's probably about 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, right? I really think that's what they kind of got on Matt Gaetz, but we can only speculate. But this is what they do. You guys got to understand your favorite politicians, they probably got collateral on these people in some way, especially if they out here partying, with these people like Diddy and Epstein. For those people, those politicians who abstain from all these elite circles and they don't care about being invited to none of this stuff, those are the politicians that are probably safe from the collateral harm. But most of these politicians are likely knee deep in some stuff, thinking that they were just going to be a part of something. This is, again, when you're starting your career, you want to be at the top, you want to be networking with the top people, right? If a Jeffrey Epstein party and you don't really know nothing about this Epstein guy, you just know you got invited to this party from another guy, right? And you go to this party, right? And they're doing all kinds of crazy shit. Maybe you drink a little too much. Why you think Dame Dash was like, when I go to parties, I bring my own liquor. I don't take anything from anybody, right? There's other guys who say they don't let females run up on them. They don't just get enthralled with any other, just any female beautiful woman walking up on them, because a lot of these dudes already see how this industry works. Where if I'm going to keep myself clean, I really got to make sure I keep myself sober. I got to abstain from some of these folks that may be out here trying to set me up and try to get collateral on me. I mean, look at some of this Matt Gaetz now. They're talking about Matt Gaetz' father was being bribed, right? And they were bribing him with collateral that they had on his son, right? So that's why Matt Gates really had to tap out, because if it was just a matter of extortion and he could prove that this was the case, right, then Matt Gates could have put his case on the table and still ran for AG without backing out. No, whatever they had on Matt, it was enough to back his ass out for a reason. And again, these politicians are just like these people in the music industry and Hollywood. They're not safe. Even some of these people that thought they were safe, they're not safe. And that's just what it is. Diddy made a lot of people not safe. So let's just say you're a record executive that need to strong arm an artist into a 360 deal, or strong arm an artist into giving away their publishing. The thing that you're going to do is expose them doing something so horrible that it ruins their reputation and their career forever. And that's the type of collateral that these folks got on people. That's the type of collateral that this young lady was telling you, that from the age of 6 to 9, she was being trained to collect on grown men, as she was also being trained to seduce them. So this stuff is beyond Diddy, it's beyond Epstein. There's a whole network of people who are protecting each other, but they're also setting each other up. They are protecting each other, but they're also getting collateral on each other, and they're setting each other up. And all of these people are rocking in high institutions that people so-called supposedly respected at one time. I don't know who you're talking about defending a man that abused children. Who are we talking about? And who's defending people who abuse children? What are you comprehending, sir? Look, here's the thing. We can, like, when we're talking about Trump, I don't hold Trump to any high esteem like some people do. If the man had ties to being, Epstein, and it has been proven that he has been a part of these people violating young girls, I believe that a lot of these truths will come to light eventually. What has been done in the dark will eventually come to the light. I think we've seen that this year, right? The year of revelation, as Cat Williams said, right? And we see a lot of revelations about people, institutions, how they work, what their mindsets are, what the influence they're trying to, populate among people. I mean, I've noticed since 2020, there's been liberal institutions, so-called credible institution, who have been creating all kinds of papers and research on why it is okay to normalize these pedophiles. They've even gone as far as to say that pedophile is a horrible, demeaning name for horrible, demeaning people. Right? See, these people don't want to own what they are. They don't want to have that label, the stigma of what they are. So that's what I'm saying. You said Israeli agents running blackmail operation on American people. I mean, I definitely don't doubt that these are tactics of theirs, that obviously they have influenced American people to also, because I believe that these people are part of a whole cross of people, right? So it's beyond the Israelis and their deviancies and their plotting, right? These are people in the United States government who are complicit because they want power, they want relevancy. That is why you have so many people who are beholden by these little super PAC lobbyists groups, who are not necessarily lobbyists because they're not registered as such, but they have a lot of influences in our government and how things are operated. So, I'm interested to see how all of this plays out, because one thing I'll say about Trump, he doesn't say the quiet part out loud. He's said it before, right? But he's also, I believe, minding his tone, because I think that he knows who's ultimately going to empower his administration. Let's see. and they should never be able to get married. Evil people in the big uniparty. I believe that. I think they're all a bunch of Satanists. Satan is the ruler of this world. Why you think Satan was able to offer Jesus the riches and kingdoms of the world? Because they belong to him. Satan was offering the King Jesus, like, I'll make you a king. All you gotta do is just come and worship me, right? A lot of these people have come, they bow down to worship Satan. So, it's a whole lot of layers to this, both seen and unseen. It's a whole lot of principalities and conflicts of the flesh and spirit. And a lot of these fleshly men don't even know how these wicked spirits are actually really using them. Some of them know how some of these wicked spirits are using them because they are engaging in incantations and rituals to, unlock certain key things from these evil spirits. So, this is Satan's world. And that's why I say it never pays to covet wanting to be rich and famous in Satan's world, because you're definitely going to have to pay the price. There's a reason why some of these people talk about they sold their soul to the devil and one day they're going to have to repay him. A lot of that is fall from grace. It's not just death, it's a fall from grace or something like that. But you know how it be. So I pray for everybody. Keep your prayers up. Keep your prayers up. Have a wonderful holiday week. And just, as we go about our everyday life, just be blessed. Just feel blessed. Because there are people going through things that a lot of us can never imagine. There are children going through things that we cannot imagine. And, we just got to keep our prayers up for those people who are being victimized and demonized by Satan's agents. And, we got to keep rebuking these demons too. That's why I'm blocking some of these ignorant people in my chat unapologetically. You come up in here with some ignorance, you definitely going to be blocked forever. And nobody cares about your ignorance but you and maybe them ugly ass people that you call your family that you were raised by. But anyways, you guys, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Unfortunately, there's no shortage of people willing to sell their souls. Ain't that the sad truth? Ain't that the sad truth? And I don't think people realize what selling their souls really mean. Like, I don't think people realize that a lot of these cabal groups of people, it's definitely a willful thing for some people. People coveting to be famous and rich, you are willfully doing that, right? But when it comes to these kids who are being betrayed by adults that should be caring for them and protecting them, there is no willfulness there. There's no willfulness there. Those children don't have a choice. And as this woman has said, depending on their family and their connections to whatever network they are in, they are expendable. So they don't have a choice. A lot of these music celebrities, all these stars, some of them, they have a choice, right? That's why you will see some of them, quote, fall from grace, but really they just didn't want to get on their knee pads or get on their knees and let somebody rob their dignity. So they just said, forget fame, right? That's really what's happening to some of those artists that rose. They had good music, but they didn't want to play ball with this satanic, homosexual music industry that's out to rob everybody's dignity because they're riddled with Satanism. They didn't want to play ball with that. So, they didn't have the career that they want. But ultimately, I'm pretty sure those people have better peaceful lives than some of these people that sold their souls. Because I often wonder, how is it that celebrities come off as the most mentally ill, I'm dealing with depression and trauma people on the planet, right? And no, money doesn't buy you happiness, but it definitely gives you access to the avenues of happiness. But if you got money and along the way they got you over here drinking children's blood, violating children, doing some of the most horrific things, to test your loyalty to a system or cabal, right? Then of course you're going to have depression along the way. Some of these people are depressed because of the demons that they've been exposed to there to have that fame. And that's just what it is. Michael kept talking about race and racism won't go away. It won't. I mean, here's the thing. It is what it is. Some people have a special interest in maintaining racial narratives and stereotypes. And so as long as those things are being maintained, people are going to be talking about racism, obviously, because you're going to have segments and groups who are compelled to defend their group of people or their race, especially when it's being demonized by propaganda. And that's just what it is. Yeah, I mean, that's just what it is. How you doing, Michael Cates? I see you. We got to be reasonable about this, and we got to understand the history of this stuff too, because this really does go back to ancient Canaan, the Canaanites, and what they were worshiping. A lot of those practices trickled into a lot of religions, right? And now, in many religions on the underground, the dark sects especially, these people engage in child sacrifice, in ritual, and in fealty to their father, the devil. So it's a lot of apostates running around here, devil worshippers, and they're wearing crosses and talking about their clergymen. You know, it's insane. Speaking of stereotype, Drake is getting his black card revoked for suing Kendrick after losing the beef. Pathetic. You know what? Drake's black card was already getting revoked during that beef. But obviously, people think that, with this whole suing because of the beef thing. See, I don't think that Drake is suing necessarily because he lost the rap beef. I think that Drake is suing because of how he lost the rap beef, right? He lost the rap beef in his mind because of the same tricks and methods that actually propped up his mediocre career. I mean, people kept talking about Drake is the best rapper ever. They were even propping Drake up to the level of trying to beat Michael Jackson's records. I mean, just disrespecting the legacy of a real FBA, right? With Drake, this Canadian psyop, right? Drake is getting exactly what he deserved because he got too beside himself. And Drake is in his feelings right now, brother, in his feelings, right? Because the same things that propped him up propped another brother up. And that's really what it is. His label went against him. And I wonder, why that is. I wonder what Drake did. What did Drake do to start getting the Diddy-like treatment from the record industry? That's really what it is. These brothers ain't getting these fall from grace or just out of nowhere. They weren't playing ball somewhere between somewhere. All right? They just really weren't. Drake did something to piss off his record label. Maybe he got too beside himself. But you're talking about a guy. Well, how much was Drake's deal? $400 million. UMG bet $400 million on Drake to have a successful career. Did he pay the label back yet, or is Drake in debt to this label? And they're just taking him out the game. This is Drake's shaming rituals because he was not able to make the money that he said he was going to make. So now they're going to give him that big old fall from grace. And they're going to elevate Kendrick because they're like, Kendrick can actually get the black people riled up. Kendrick coming in like black Jesus to the black folks. That's what Kendrick came in with, and Drake can never compete with that. Aubrey Graham can never compete with that, and that's just a matter of fact, And Drake has some really good songs. Don't get me wrong. I think that Drake is still a talented artist. I still think that Drake has range, right? But Drake was artificially propped. We really shouldn't know Drake as much as we know Drake. But again, he had that privilege, that non black side, to carry him in an industry that basically really wasn't for his people. Hip hop is not for your people. That side of your people. It really isn't. They just profit off of it. But they need black people. And that's just a matter of fact, right? You prop up any non-black American person in hip hop and they're always going to need black people to carry their cred. And that's exactly what Drake needed. Drake really couldn't stand alone without Young Money. Drake really wouldn't have had the career without all of those black men, black American men, that he had to align himself with just to have that artificial propping. It's kind of like Cardi B. Like Cardi B, she keeps herself a brown-skinned black woman token right by her side a lot of time because honestly, Cardi needs that black people cred too because she's not a black woman. But anyways, you said Straight Outta Compton was trying to tell us something without actually telling us something. I'm telling you, you start really looking at things for what they are, your consciousness, it starts to increase and you start seeing everything for what it is. These people are psyops and they're manipulating our people and people beyond our people, right? Anyways, let's see. Thank you so much, Sherry. I'd say peace and good vibes to you. Peace and good vibes to everybody, right? We're going to close out this week on a good note, folks. I say align yourself with your family. Keep your family close. Squash any beef that you have because life is too short to be in rivalry with people that you actually really care about and love. So make peace with folks. Make peace with folks. That is the godly way to be. And I will catch you guys on the next one. Bye.